thoughts on it. The extreme open, I think, is probably a little bit dangerous. I don't think we can just open borders and just let anybody in. I like what Canada does. Canada, you go up and you visit and you can hang out for 30 days, but if you don't have a job already established or some way to make yourself a living, then you can't just move up there. My son is married to a Canadian for 7 years. He can't just move up there. So he lives down here and she and the kids live up there, so it's, and maybe that's too hard, too strict. On the other hand, I don't think we need to spend all that money on a wall. I think just, I don't know, doing things a little bit differently, more compassionate, the people that are already here. I have a friend of mine whose mom is in Guatemala, and she hasn't seen her in 20-some years, and her mom had cancer, and she couldn't go visit her because she couldn't come. It's like, so that kind of stuff is just really heartbreaking, separating families and stuff like that. That's on one extreme. But I also understand that for safety reasons, and we can't, if America just like opens the floodgates, it'll flood, I mean, it's gonna be too open. So I think we need some restrictions, but reasonable. And yeah, what he said shouldn't take that long.
Let me say to you also, just so that you don't get the wrong impression, this is not an exercise that you would do from the get-go, right? That this is something that you would do maybe the second meeting that you have, because you have to set the ground rules in order for us to talk respectfully to each other, right? So, but I'm doing this again for us to actually get the flood blowing. The next exercise that I'm just going to talk you through is an active listening exercise that you actually would do with the students, and you would, with your co-facilitator, you would actually demonstrate to them what isn't active listening, right? And so your co-facilitator, you would actually have your co-facilitator tell something about their high school, right? And as you're describing your high school, I'm interrupting you. You're saying, well, I went to a high school very diverse.
I went to high school too.
What high school was it?
Like that.
I went to high school too, and it was very, very diverse, and it was really interesting. Now, what were you saying?
Well, when I was in New
Right.
Jersey, that was diverse too, and the kids at the port burned down their school, got sent to ours.
So you demonstrate what isn't active listening, and then you ask the student, what did you notice? Well, you interrupted her. She didn't get a chance to do this. She was rolling her eyes. She was frustrated. Okay. Then you reverse it, and this time you're actively listening. As you are telling me about your story, I'm asking for clarification, just so that I understand what you said. You said it was 30% African American. Is that what I heard you say? And then you would actually do that. Oh, okay. Now and then, so lots of clarification. That's active listening. And then what you would do is you would break the participants into diets and say, I'd like for you to actually practice active listening. One member actually talks about and then give them a topic. And the other one actively listens, and then you reverse it. And then once you finish the exercise, you tell them, we would like for you during the dialogue to actually practice active listening so that we can actually do that. So I'll do another exercise a little bit later. What we're going to do now, we're going to move into a dialogue simulation. Okay? And we need to actually sit in a circle. So we might have to push these tables back. Okay, so understand that this is a simulation of a dialogue that's going to go very, very, very quickly. Normally, you wouldn't do it this way. The introductions are going to go like that, and then we're going to get into a dialogue around a topic. And you're going to hear me say, thank you, and we've done this, or whatever. But understand that normally we would not do this. It would be a lot slower. Okay? So let's go ahead and get going. All right, thank you so much for coming to this intergroup dialogue on race in America. Appreciate you signing up for this. We are going to be meeting for the next 6 weeks together to talk about topics in that particular area. My name is Jesus Trevino. I am your facilitator, and I will be with you for the next six weeks. What I'd like for us to do first, before I tell you what we're going to be doing here today, is I'd like for you to go around the room. I see you have your name tags on. And I see that you have a little symbol on there that reflects something that is important to you. And we can talk about that. right now, I just want to find out who are you and what area are you with? Okay, I'm Jesus Trevino, the facilitator.
Lisa George, I'm with the Learning Resources Center Department.
Lisa Meadows County, professional development and learning.
Nancy Lynn Burgess, I teach English and human development.
Cynthia Cervantes, I teach health and education. Olivia Long, math and science. Robin Earhart, English.
Edward Mickiewicz, automotive.
Say that again?
Edward Mickiewicz. Okay, let me try to spell that, I'm so sorry. Automotive.
Mayla Lee, facilities.
Marcia Gager from Mayo College, Business Training Center. Lucy Alamillo, art history.
I'm Jamie Collette, and I'm with the Special Resources Center.
Thank you so much, and again, well, I want to talk to you first of all for the purpose of these dialogues, what it's about and what it's not about. Purpose of the dialogue is for us to actually explore dimensions of race in America. And as you know, right now, that's a very contemporary topic because we are struggling to try to make sense of some of these issues. And we're going to be having discussions about this through what they call dialogue. And the dialogue process, the purpose is not really about us debating the issue. We're not here to debate issues of race in America. We're not even here to achieve consensus around these issues, but rather we are here to try to achieve higher levels of understanding around each of the issues. And the way that we do it is by dialogue, and embedded in dialogue are different opinions. So we need everybody to express their opinions. The only thing that I would say as a facilitator is that as you express your opinion, that you follow a few ground rules. One is that we talk respectfully to each other. That we don't necessarily agree on these things, but that we talk to each other, say, I respectfully disagree, for example, with you. Also that we practice active listening so that you can clarify and talk to people about what is it that you said and I didn't quite understand, and that you address each other by name. Also confidentiality. It's you can go ahead and talk to your partners, you can talk to your roommates about what's going on here. It's just not appropriate to mention names. To not go up there, and I heard Lisa said something, we wouldn't say that, but somebody in the group said this, because the learning takes place also outside of the group as you talk to other people. So confidentiality is actually important. Also, a very important technique is called calling in versus calling out. And I would like for people to actually practice the habit of or the technique of calling in versus calling out. Calling out basically doesn't take into consideration that you're here, that you actually took the time out of your busy time to try to come in and educate yourself. So I owe you that respect of calling you in and talking to you, as opposed to calling out is embarrassing somebody. You know, so for example, to say somebody, you know, what you just said was really racist, and I want to call you on it. Right? You can hear it in my voice. I'm pointing my finger at you. That's calling out, as opposed to let me disrespect with you. Let me disagree with you respectfully, and let me give another point of view. Now I'm actually calling in, right? So we can actually have this in practice. And so having said that, are there any other ground rules that might be important to actually have enforced during the dialogue that I did mention?
Well, one thing that happens in my class is that some people talk a whole lot and other people don't talk enough.
Okay, that's good. So the expectation is that people will contribute to the dialogue, and that hopefully we can actually do that. Now, in the case where we do have somebody who has a lot to contribute, as a facilitator, I may cut you off, but I want you to know that I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just trying to make sure that all voices are heard. So we don't want you to stop contributing. We just want to make sure that you allow other people to actually speak.
And another issue is that some people don't want to say anything at all.
Yes, that's, hopefully we can set up an environment here, and that depends on this community, so that folks actually feel
observe and be part of it, but maybe don't have to verbalize.
Sometimes I just have them talk to the person next to them to kind of practice verbalizing it. But I've also given extra credit for the whole class if everybody talks, so then they like bug each other. But I'm just saying, those are the issues that I have in my class.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And in fact, I'm gonna do a timeout right now. We're gonna do an exercise a little bit later that's called the Four Corners exercise. It talks about the different types of people and how they actually engage in dialogue. So that you can do that exercise with the students so that they understand, yes, I'm a quiet participant, or I actually have a lot to say, or I only speak when I actually think it's important, so that they understand that they have different styles and the expectation that we want everybody to participate. Any other ground rules that you think would be important for us to adhere in order to make this a safe space for dialogue?
No interruption?
I'm sorry?
No interruption?
Interruption, thank you, that's very good.
No yelling?
Sir,
No
sir.
yelling?
Let's talk a little bit about that. Elaborate on what you mean by yelling.
You know, like screaming and yelling at each other, like, ah, you know, like, you know, you can get excited about what you're talking about, but not to be like argumentative, I
Okay,
guess.
okay, yes.
I think that one doesn't need to be defined though, because I think that one was put into being respectful to others' dialogue and conversation. I think appropriate voice is not calling out, but calling in. So I think that would be under that kind of, yeah.
Yes.
And I wonder if that will get into your Four Corners exercise, because my personal thing about yelling, I'm a very soft-spoken person, and I come from soft-spoken people, but I'm also acquainted with people who their natural, normal voice is very loud and very forceful, and their intent is not yelling in a manner of anger or argumentativeness, but I feel it like physical violence.
Yeah,
And-
you receive it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I would say, regarding mental comments, can the rest of the people in the group practice patience and acceptance to understand the person who may have brought himself or herself to the point of, you know, emotional, how do you say it?
Overexcited.
Emotionally charged comments.
Right.
If we could, I mean, I'm just thinking, if we could practice patience and compassion and empathy for that expression, it may be a sign of acceptance, or, because sometimes we can see the strengths of their feelings as being expressed.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, in-
Yeah,
in
it's,
fact-
I don't know how to.
Yeah, in fact, in this group, you will have people who get angry. You just don't want anybody to actually get up here and say, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Now, that's a little bit too intense, but, you know, the fact that I'm sitting here and saying, okay, let's go ahead and cut to the chase. I just want to tell you that white people in this country, and you can hear my voice getting animated, that's okay, right? As long as you set the ground rules, that person will express some anger, and of course, that will get everybody to pay attention, right? Okay, this is very, very serious. So the groups, the way they run for the period of 6 weeks, they run the, what is it they call it, the group formation stages, the forming, norming, storming, you know, performing. So around the third week is where things get a little bit hairy. And this is where students start to talk to each other. Okay, we've been beating around the bush now for 2 weeks. So now actually I want to be really serious with you, right? So that around that, so don't be shocked as facilitators, just be prepared that that's actually possibly may happen. And then you're prepared and you sort of deal with it. But as long as this person doesn't get up and now they're in your face and going like that, that's, you have to say, time out, no, wait, that violates the rules that we actually set. Go ahead and sit down, can you say it in a different way as to what you're addressing? And go from there.
So would you say like maybe using when I statements, when you do this, or when white people do this, I feel like, you know, when I
Yeah,
statements.
yeah, that's another very good technique. So it's not, I think it's fair game to say, well, I think that African Americans have done this to Latinos. It's not fair to actually target an African American in the group and say, you have done this, right? So don't personalize, one of the ground rules would be, don't personalize the dialogue. And that, but we want to talk about intergroup issues around these things. So, well, this is great because we are actually setting the ground rules for how we want the dialogue to go. Because when you hit that stage where people are going to get angry, you can refer back to the dialogue. Now, I've had also facilitators type up the dialogues and then make it like a social contract, and then they bring it back, students read it, and then they sign it, right? I mean, you're not going to go to court over it, but it's kind of like, I did sign the ground rules, right? So that also helps out. There's another technique you can use. Yes?
Is the goal to get everyone in the group to talk?
The goal is to try to get
And
everybody.
if someone isn't ready to talk, do we just respect that and hope that they talk next week, or do we try to get them to engage?
I will tell you the way that I handle that is, for example, let's say that you haven't said anything, right? And I'm going, and I say, what is your name again?
Naila.
Naila?
Naila.
Naila. Naila, I realize that you haven't really said anything, and I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this, right? And let's say that you're sitting there, and in a sense, you got caught off guard, right? Because you weren't expecting me to call on you. Right? It would be inappropriate for me to use the counseling technique where you just, we're going to sit here until you say something, right? And it might be 5 minutes. That's not appropriate for this. But a way to, a few seconds, and it sounds, if it feels like like you're not ready to say something, I would say something like, why don't you hold that thought? We'll get back to you. Think about it. And then you sort of have the dialogue again. And then sometimes you don't even have to go back to you. You actually jump in because you've had a chance now to think about it. But you may come back, to them. So you have to actually play that by, case by case. But you don't want to embarrass anybody. But you do set the strong expectation that you want folks to participate, because otherwise we won't have a dialogue if everybody sort of holds back. And of course, there's cultural implications too. Native Americans, not as a whole, but some Native Americans are very, very quiet. They're learning a lot, but they're also, so you don't want to be attentive to those kinds of issues. No right or wrong answers. Just try things. I will tell you that if you as a facilitator make a mistake and somebody calls you on it, don't try to defend yourself. Don't try to brush it under the table and ignore it, but take it on right there and basically apologize. Just, you know what, you're absolutely right. I violated rule number 3, and I am so sorry I did that. The participant will appreciate you more, as opposed to getting defensive. Everybody will pick up on it, right? Or if I actually embarrass you, not only are you going to be upset, but you're going to be upset too, because you're going to say, that was not right. So that's the biggest technique that you have available to you. In case you do make a mistake, apologize. People will actually appreciate that. And we'll talk about that. Yes?
What came up earlier was something around boundaries, that we want people, like, I think it speaks to the call in and the call out.
Yeah.
And maybe something about that when we speak, we want to feel free to speak our mind and express our emotions and our thought. But the impact of that, just being mindful of the impact that how I'm speaking is going to be on others. I don't know everybody quite yet,
Yeah.
but if I, speak loudly and forcefully, it's just in that context saying, there may be folks in the room who shut down, and just if we could, it comes with respect, how would you verbalize that? I don't see it as a ground rule per se, but I see it as just begin to think about the impact.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're going to say to you that emotion is very, very important in the dialogues. If you just stay on the cognitive level, they're not going to move. You're going to move them so far only. It's only when the student is saying, yeah, I was followed by the security guard at Walmart, right? And then when you ask them, how did that make you feel, right? And then they start oh, I was so angry. Once you start getting to talk about anger, and people actually pay attention. Or they start to see somebody cry about something, it's like, okay, this is serious. As opposed to it's cognitive up here. I've been at Walmart and I've never seen that happen, right? But now you're crying, it's like, wow, maybe something did happen, right? So the emotional piece in this work is very, very important. You're just cognitive. I've worked with faculty before. I've never run a dialogue with faculty, but faculty tend to stay up in the head. So that will be a challenge if you run faculty groups, is how do you get them to also talk about their feelings around.
And just I see one quick thing on the other side of turning it around is for some of us who know we're sensitive to certain kinds of emotions that others express,
Yeah.
just to say that may come up. So
Yes.
just recognize you're safe here. This is, just somehow encouraging us to monitor our own emotions as others are expressing theirs. So I can expand that a little bit for myself.
Yes.
I was thinking along the same lines as well and had a similar question of whether or not it's ever been a strategy, or would it be a helpful strategy to have students self-identify about self-reflective about their voice and how they respond to other people's voices. So that, for example, I've always had a loud voice. I had a struggle with lots of siblings to be heard. So very young, I learned in college that people would tell me after class, "You sounded so angry. Oh, why are you so passionate about that?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I had no idea. I think it's just my loud Mexican voice. I was in Iowa, and in a very small town, and people just always thought I was heated about something. That's just how I talk.
What a great.
So having maybe this kind of, and after that I felt very self-conscious and, kind of had to learn to get past that self-consciousness then again. And so maybe if there's a dialogue about that, this is how I hear things, and we're putting a face to that emotion and response, then it's not just feeling, I feel like that might feel like censorship, like be mindful, don't get too loud, and then it's not expressive in the way you were talking.
What a great suggestion. This is copyrighted, by the way. I've never actually had anybody make that suggestion, but that's so powerful because it gets back to you. Is that so? Everybody talk about voice and how do you react to different voices, and I've never had anybody but that would be part of the tools for engaging in dialogue, active listening, the 4 corners exercise, as well as let's talk about voice and how we react to voice. So that if somebody is talking in a forceful voice, you're sitting back and you understand it because we've talked about it, as opposed to I'm caught off guard. Wow, you look really, really angry when you use this. That's the way you express yourself. Right?
So maybe you're being sensitive to that. If I was talking to Lisa, I might talk more quiet. If I'm talking to you, then I know I can get a little louder or more or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of always putting these things on the table, and this is what you're talking about. And what a great suggestion. Thank you for offering that.
And also what it does is, to your point, it lets the other person who's soft-spoken not be offended. They'll see it as, okay, well, they're not really upset, they're not. But some people who are just passionate and when they get passionate about a topic, their voice elevates even if they're just talking at a monotone, but if it's something that means something to them, the passion behind it raises their voice, they're more forceful, but they're not upset, it's just something that it means something to them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it would mitigate it for all parties in some way.
Yeah, 'cause it's like sometimes I can tell when a person's being like that, that's just like how they are. They just came from a big family and that's how they learn to talk. Or it's something that they're really getting excited, they're not angry, but it's something that they're just really passionate about. Sometimes I can tell that, and then I can recognize, okay, I just need to understand that's how it is and relax. But other times, I can't tell. So sometimes I need to get clarification. Are you really angry or mad, or is this, or is this just normal for you? Sometimes I can't tell, and then that creates misunderstanding in communication.
Yes. In fact, I have that kind of face that people sometimes ask me, are you angry? And I just have that face. I look like I'm angry all the time, but I'm not. tension around there. You look like you're angry. And I know African American males a lot of times are accused of that. They're sitting there, they're not doing anything, and then I've seen whites actually stop the dialogue. Are you angry? And then the person is like, oh, yeah, I'm just listening, right? I think a great discussion about voice and faces, I think would be important, and then would get the group to actually bond. Yes.
But what if someone who really is angry? So we need to acknowledge that, not just try to shut them down.
Yeah.
That would feel like they would just hold everything in them, that they're not able to express their feelings. So the goal is to have them feel angry, and it's okay to feel angry, but to quiet them down and tell them not to yell, that would make it worse for them.
Yes, anger is important in the group.
Right, you have to bring it out.
You just want to make sure they don't cross lines. You know, as the example that
Oh, right, of course.
the
Yeah,
example
of
that I
course.
gave, where I get up and now I'm pointing, I'm actually next to you, right? That's not acceptable, but
Right, so
for you to express, you know what
Also-
you said made me angry. That's fair game, because that allows
right,
for the
yeah,
joint
like you want to bring it out, you want to censor that, bring it out and discuss it, and
Yes.
have them express that emotion. But what you're saying, of course, and also language issues as well. So culture also relates with language. For example, for me, my deaf culture is a very strong culture. And we are able to open, and we're very open and very blunt. So it's definitely related to the culture, it's tied to the culture.
Yes.
And we say things as we see it. So American culture is very, it's kind of like a sandwich model. So we say the nice positive things first, and then we slip in the negative, and then we close it up with another positive, and that's our little sandwich. We just say it as it is. So we see it, we say it. So that's like if we have seen somebody in a long time, right? And we see them again, and they put on weight, we're gonna tell them right away. Like, wow.
Wow, you gained.
Wow, you gained weight, what happened? But that's not intended to insult them. It's just the culture and the language. So in that situation, in the group, it can come across as misunderstanding, like you're offended, it's offensive, but it's not. It's the language culture.
Good point, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about culture too. So the first time I was exposed to dialogue, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, I did get referred to a video clip. Yeah, maybe I've got it saved on my computer, I don't know. And it was of a dialogue, and I'm fairly certain the topic was race. And a woman, African-American woman, was sitting next to a white man. I don't think I saw the precursor to what made her angry. But she said to him, you don't know what it's like for me to have to put on, I don't know the word she used, not mask, but how I have to arm myself to go out into the world each day as an African-American woman. She was very angry and very frustrated that I think a man sitting next to her had said something. So I agree with Jamie that if that's not permitted, if the space needs to be safe enough so that if someone has, if that's what their experience is at that particular moment, and it could be any topic, this would happen to be race, that it has to be permitted to come up, you know, like the pot has to be able to explode, like the pasta pot, you know, and then the group needs to be able to contain that expression. And if I can find the video, and I think it's from a consultant who works out of Oakland, I think I might be able to find it, but it might be helpful for us to use something like that. How do you create the environment so that hopefully people will feel safe enough to participate? I think one thing that we're modeling, but that Jesus hasn't actually spoken about, is the number of people. You really can't do a dialogue with 30 people.
Right.
It doesn't work with too many more than, this is a nice size, because the intimacy is lost if you've got 30, you know, it doesn't work in that way. Anyway.
Right. Yes.
I think you said something, who's your first name?
Oh, I was just going to
No.
ask.
Oh, I wanted to add, you said something really important with, listening to understand. And I think what I just got out of what you're saying is that come out with the active listening, or with the exercise, is that when I'm listening and I'm seeing somebody really angry and upset or direct, and it's like, whoa, because I'm not the most direct person. You know, I'm a lawyer, but not a direct person, you know, I have that background. And so it's listening for understanding, and that takes, for the facilitator then to be able to ask her questions to help everybody understand what's behind that rage. You know, like, we hear that rage, what, you know, just boom. And being able, I guess it's in those quality questions that we learn to ask. But it goes to, how do I understand what's going on with this person?
Just on the thought, because it's like kind of started this, but, I was thinking, you know, you got up and you went over to somebody, so maybe if you're angry, you can get louder. You can stand up if you're really angry, but you're not allowed to approach anybody, and maybe make it that way, so, you know, if you're boiling and you're, you know, the water's coming over the edge, you can actually move your body, but you can't move towards anybody aggressively or something, and make that like.
For the most part, the participants behave themselves in that way. There is anger, and they do express their anger, but I have yet to see anybody get up and go point the finger in somebody else's, face. I mean, if you get to that point, as facilitators, time out. That's the biggest technique that you have. Stop. Okay, go ahead, sit down, and then tell us a little bit more about your anger and what's fueling that, and then let's have a dialogue around that piece. Also understand that you will always be working with a co-facilitator, so that the two of you will be working together, so that you're not alone, and that you have a plan, so that when that happens, how do the two of you actually work together to make sure that you're not left alone? It's like, okay, I'm your co-facilitator, but I'm not going to say anything, right? It doesn't work. You've got to work together with the question. Now, a lot of times too, is that when you have two individuals, for example, that are angry at each other, and you put a timeout, and you say, okay, come on, let me do this. Let me summarize. I hear two things here that are being said. One person is saying this, the other person is saying that. I want to know what the rest of you think about, are there any other perspective on that? So what I did is I shifted it away from you